day. A last-minute request to delay SROs from entering MPS was submitted Wednesday by Milwaukee's City Attorney Evan Goyke, but state officials say enough is enough.
I hope to God Judge Borowski throws some people in jail.
That's how angry State Representative Bob Donovan says he is after the City of Milwaukee asked Judge David Borowski to delay SROs, even though Donovan says Milwaukee police already have the training.
A year ago, Chief Norman told me MPD is ready to go with their officers in the schools. So what about that?
Donovan says if SROs are not added as of Thursday, he's pushing for a bill to revoke any more state funding from going to MPS and the City of Milwaukee. Sean Brinda, WTMJ News.
We'll have more from that courthouse hearing, which comes up in just under now 1 hour at 10 a.m. We'll have more today here on WTMJ. Bed bugs, no heat, angry residents, and now another issue for Milwaukee's embattled housing authority. Mayor Cavalier Johnson planned to name Ramona Ramos to fill a vacant HACM board seat, but Ramos this week withdrawing her name from consideration. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reports Mayor Johnson is blaming advocacy group Common Ground for Ramos withdrawing her name, as well as for contributing to the dysfunction of the HACM board. Earlier this week, the group sent a letter signed by more than 300 residents to Mayor Johnson's office expressing their frustration with his board nomination choice. One person dead after a shooting on Milwaukee's near west side. Man shot and killed Wednesday near 27th and Highland. Police have a male suspect in custody. Britain's Prime Minister meeting President Trump at the White House today.
I'm Vicky Barker in London, where Brits are watching their left-leaning Prime Minister Keir Starmer trying to find common ground with President Trump ahead of their White House meeting.
We share the view that our best days lie ahead.
But any optimism about today's encounter could be misplaced. Starmer wants Ukraine, and Europe for that matter, included in any negotiations about Ukraine's future, something Trump has made clear he opposes. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with President Trump at the White House tomorrow. Not since 2015 has the U.S. recorded a death from measles, but as an outbreak of the illness spreads through West Texas, that decade-long record has now been shattered by tragedy.
Most people who come down with measles recover without complications, but the death of an unvaccinated school-aged child in Lubbock is a harsh reminder.
It really underscores that this is not a mild illness. It can be deadly.
ABC News contributor and epidemiologist Dr. John Brownstein says he expects the current 124 measles cases in West Texas to rise, along with hospitalizations. In short,
this virus is not under control.
Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.
And legendary actor Gene Hackman has died. His body discovered in his New Mexico home, along with his wife's and a dog's. News Nation's Xavier Walton reports information has been slow to come, but the Santa Fe sheriff says no foul play is expected.
That same sheriff telling News Nation that they found Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa dead in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. And this was yesterday afternoon. The sheriff adds, right now, no exact cause of death, early stages of the investigation. Reports suggest it was actually a neighbor that might have been the first to notify police by calling for a welfare check. Their dog also found dead.
Hackman was 95. His wife Betsy was 63. Time now for news about your money, the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Mixed major reportings early this morning on Wall Street. The Dow is up 85 points at 43,519, while the NASDAQ, it's been a rough week for that group, and they're down again 232 this morning at 18,843. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 is off 31 points this morning, sitting at 5,924. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. More details at annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather coming up next. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:03.
So how would I describe our people? I'd say the people we set out to hire have to be smart, hardworking, and honest. Honesty being paramount of the three. Because honesty breeds integrity. And when you have integrity, you won't let yourself do anything less than your best. And that's who we're looking for. Character counts here, and integrity matters. That's why it's easy for us to offer the industry's best lifetime workmanship warranty with every roof we sell. A rock-solid warranty like ours guarantees our reputation and assures your satisfaction. At Semper Fi, we do the right thing. We seize the moral high ground, and we hold it. And when you do that, you end up having a business that's going to last for generations. This is Brad Youngbluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry. Semper Fi.
This change has leveled us up while being able to maintain the same quality of service that we've always provided, with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission. We're proud to be part of the Century 21 family, so you can move fearlessly with the added confidence of top-of-the-line marketing for maximum home exposure. And that means more eyeballs and the real potential for the highest price for your home. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated. With the ability to market luxury homes on a higher scale than ever before, Century 21 Benefit Realty has taken a huge step forward to tap into a global network of buyers. Maximum exposure to spotlight your unique home with our fine homes and estates marketing so you can sell it for the highest price. And with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission, you win. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
Time now for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call, That's All Sports Desk. Bucks return to action tonight at Fiserv Forum. They'll face Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. Our coverage begins with Bucks shoot-around at 6. Here on your home of the Bucks, WTMJ. Badger women fall to number 2 UCLA Wednesday, 91-61. That's at the Kohl Center. Next up for the women, the regular season finale against Iowa on Sunday. Badger Sports Update sponsored by Siding Unlimited. It's siding and a whole lot more. The Brewers continuing spring ball action this week, and pitcher Aaron Ashby is embracing an up-and-down 2024 as preps continue in Arizona for the 2025 regular season.
Aaron Ashby's 2024 season was a roller coaster ride, ultimately finding his velocity at the end of the season in the bullpen, but coming up short in the playoffs.
In general, I viewed last season as a step in the right direction for myself as like a player for the Brewers. We ended healthy, back to where I was, if not better. You can't dwell too much. You'll just like suffer your whole baseball career if you like focus on one game.
You can hear our full conversation in the Brewers All Access podcast feed. I'm Dominic Cotroneo.
Brewers back today in action against the Royals, and the NFL saying it plans to use its virtual measuring system to determine first downs for the 2025 regular season. Let's check the roads. Your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. Right now, we've got a crash on the exit to James Lovell and St. Paul from 794 East, so that's on the exit as you get off of the freeway. Be mindful of that. Also have the right shoulder blocked due to a broken down vehicle on the I-94 South Collector near College Avenue. As far as your drive times, got no delays really across the system. Everything is looking pretty good there. And your WTMJ forecast for today, as we mentioned before, it will be cloudy. It will be breezy as well today. Looking at a high right around 43. Might see some wet snowflakes, though most of them have moved out over the lake this morning. Mostly cloudy tonight, down to 30. 51 mild and windy, as well as partly sunny for your Friday. Mostly sunny, 29, a chilly day Saturday, 34 sunny on Sunday. Clouds back on the increase Monday with a high of 43 degrees. Right now in Madison, 39, cloudy in Green Bay, and 38 Waukesha. Clouds and 37, and in Milwaukee, partly cloudy and 38 degrees. I'm Adam Roberts. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time is 9:08.
Good morning, Wisconsin. So let's pour that coffee and talk to some experts about what's going on in Milwaukee, Madison, Washington, and beyond. Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. It's the Political Power Hour on WTMJ. Here's your host, Steve Scaffidi.
Should we talk about the government?
Let's jump right into Thursday's show, the legal edition today of the Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ. Yes, I am Steve, and my guest today, he's been here many times before, former U.S. Attorney for Southeastern Wisconsin, Mr. Jim Santel. Good morning.
Steve, always a pleasure to be with you, including this morning.
One of the things I love about you is you do your homework, one. And if I had a moving camera, I'd show the stack of paperwork.
There's a lot of paper over here.
You are a practicing attorney and somebody who certainly digs in deep on this stuff. We're going to start with something that happened I think you said 9 days ago.
9 days ago.
An executive order that I think sort of disrupts the normal process of government. Explain.
So 9 days ago, Tuesday, February 18th, the President of the United States of America issued one of his many executive orders that he's issued, obviously since becoming president in January of this year. And he said this, along with many other things. He said, no employee of the executive branch acting in their official capacity may advance an interpretation of a law as the position of the United States that contravenes mine. Basically saying the executive, the president, states what the law is, and that's it. And that applies not only to regulations, guidance, positions advanced in litigation. That's everything. Articulating the view, again, first advanced, I would offer, Steve, as you and I have chatted before, also advanced by the Supreme Court, that the president can state what the law is. This executive order, to my mind, again, not only in violation of the manners by which various agencies have been established, which we can
which
chat
are supposed
more about.
to be independent.
That's exactly right. There are all kinds of agencies, including one that I believe affects you, Steve, right here, the Federal Communications Commission,
Absolutely.
the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, even a portion of the Federal Reserve, that huge economic entity right there. Basically, all of those, you got it just right, Steve, have been independent agencies established by the legislature without oversight by the White House. Now, according to what the president has said, that's all changed. He is now responsible for all of their decision making.
In your notes, you use the term autocratic rule.
Yes.
That's sort of a very descriptive term to say, in what laymen might say, I am king, you will follow my declarations.
I am king, exactly. And I think that it is supported, if you will, by what the United States Supreme Court did 8 months ago. You and I chatted about it on this very broadcast,
Right.
July 1 of last year, in which the Supreme Court, at the pen of our Chief Justice, says what? He says we need to have a person, again, independent, which we acknowledge of other branches. This president has got to be energetic, vigorous, decisive, speedy execution of the laws, cannot be entangled by other things like criminal prosecutions, has to be, again, cannot be feeble, because the feeble executive implies a feeble execution of the government, strong, muscular. Donald Trump is taking that to its real incarnation here and saying once again about a week or so ago that I am now the law in our nation.
Would you go as far as saying those words that you read attributed to the U.S. Supreme Court, John Roberts, I think you said, embolden the president to take these stances that he's certainly not afraid to take, almost with a daily barrage of executive orders?
Could not state it better, Steve. Again, we look at that opinion, even to this day, as being the one in which, of course, the Supreme Court identifies a category of things that a president can do in office in the White House, for which he, maybe one day she, has no criminal exposure, especially when it comes to the Department of Justice. That's the big takeaway from last July. But the first pages of it, I would offer, are even more important in establishing that great authority. When the this is the law of the land, and now Donald Trump has done the bookend, if you will, not only with respect to these independent agencies, I think an awful lot of people believe, across partisan divides, in violation of the ways in which these agencies have been created, when he says only I, or in some instances, the Attorney General, who, yes, by the way, has some responsibility here, we're going to tell you what the law is, and if you don't follow that, consequences will follow as to you.
Yeah, I want to do a whole segment on enforcement, because if you take that stance, that attitude as the highest ranking governmental official in this country, I think some typical protocols in place for how these things are enforced, rulings by courts, whether they're the highest court or state courts, if you throw it out the window, there really is no enforcement. We'll get to that in a second, but just going back to the FCC and the National Labor Relations Board, one of the reasons I think these were sort of independent agencies or organizations in some cases is that it did protect from politics and the bias built into politics, which we all know is significant, probably more so today than it's been in maybe 100 and 200 years.
Precisely. And you look at the legislative history behind these, and by the way, other organizations, other entities out there, and you see that that's exactly what Congress wanted to accomplish. They did not want a president to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, my ratings, my poll numbers are not very big. I'm going to tell those folks, I'm going to tell the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he's got to reduce interest rates. He's got to do some other things over there. You don't want those decisions being made at that level. Among other things, again, we talked about the FCC, the SEC. These are big agencies. They were intended to be independent so that political, not only animation, but just the whims of politics would not influence what should be the law-based and fact-based decisions of agency representatives who are independent. Do they have their own personal views? Of course they do, but are not political in nature. That's the design here.
People who call themselves originalists, or there's other terms for we love the Constitution as written, and that's the law. We know it's sort of a fluid document. We've seen it obviously with amendments is the most obvious example of that, but we've also interpretation. The Supreme Court is, we saw it on Roe v. Wade.
Exactly.
And the Dobbs decision, right?
We're still doing a lot of things, again, applying concepts contemporaneously that are maybe implicit, if not explicit, in the Constitution. We do that all the time.
But using that word, originalist, what does the Constitution say, if anything, or clearly, declaratively, about the power of the president?
Right. And so this is plainly Article 2 of the Constitution, right? Note once again, Steve, as you and I have talked, what is Article 1?
I love how you have it ready to read.
It's right here, right? And it's there in front of you as well. What is Article 1? You and I have chatted about this both privately and on the air here. Article 1 is the other word we haven't spoken about this morning. The Congress, right? The legislature. James Madison and George Mason, others anticipated that the big representative for the American people would be that Capitol building, right? Not existing at the time, but the legislature is going to be the one that decides all this. Article 2 was not an afterthought, but Article 2, the whole idea behind it was executing what the Congress tells us the law is. Now, there have been obviously many amendments to that along the way, including interpretations of it, but the Article 2 in the Constitution is very explicit about all kinds of things the president can and cannot do, including, for example, the capacity to declare war. That's a congressional action, as we saw, again, probably one of the last times is World War II. All kinds of things specified. And then, as you just accurately noted, the courts have interpreted the Constitution, including powers more broadly. Lots of things related to executive orders. Can presidents just sign documents and legislate? The Congress has, in many ways, recently talked about a major questions doctrine that says, you know what? If it's big, if it's huge, and it's new, you can't do it, Mr. President. And so, for example, during the Biden administration under COVID, the president could not do things with respect to businesses. And there have been environmental things. So there are always these interpretations. But the concept has always been, starts with Congress. They define what the law is. They define what these agencies are all about. And, Mr. President, you're the one who's supposed to execute on that.
Let's talk about enforcement after the break. Jim Santel, former U.S. Attorney for Southeastern Wisconsin. Lots to talk about. Your comments, welcome. 855-616-1620. WTMJ signing unlimited talk and text line. Quick break on WTMJ.
Wisconsin winters are unpredictable.
This is history. Never had a tornado touchdown in February.
We keep you updated on blizzards.
Winter storm warning has been issued for all of southeast Wisconsin, and it's going to get really, really dicey.
Blackouts.
Tens of thousands of customers across southeast Wisconsin are without power this morning.
Icy roads.
Very, very slick conditions pretty much everywhere.
And more. With WTMJ Fleet Farm Storm Team alerts on air and at WTMJ.com.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Scaffidi for Milwaukee Weight Loss. Who's that? Well, that's the organization, the company that allowed me to lose 30 pounds in the last 6 weeks. It's possible. I'm a success story. 30 pounds. It's the secret to losing up to 1 pound of fat every day. Their doctors have developed easy-to-follow weight loss program. Helps you lose weight fast, naturally, safely, no drugs, no injections, no risk of serious side effects, no prepackaged meals or those bars or shakes. And if you don't want to, you don't even have to exercise. I do light walking. That's my exercise of choice, but you don't have to. Their program helps reset your metabolism. You can keep the weight off for good. I'm in this for a year, so I will be maintaining as well as losing. They give you a great coach for all the support you need daily if you need that much. Costs half as much as other programs, works twice as fast. Go to MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. Schedule your free consultation. Free consultation. Most patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in about a month or two. It's crazy to watch your body lose that, but it feels great. Schedule your free consultation by calling this number. I just gave this number out to a texter earlier. 262-449-1180. 262-449-1180. Or go to MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. That's MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
How much does it cost to talk to Gruber offices after a serious crash? It's free. Yes, free. As in, it won't cost you anything to speak with us. Not sure if you have a case? Call our team at Gruber Law Offices today. Your first call and your first consultation are always free. And you'll never pay us a fee until we win your case. If you've been seriously injured, call Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all.
Thanks for finding us on your busy radio day. 620 WTMJ, Steve Scaffidi, along with my friend, attorney and former U.S. Attorney for Southeast Wisconsin, Jim Santel. All right, so we talked about some of the things that happened from the executive office, the Oval Office, or in Mar-a-Lago, whatever that office is called, because he's signed executive orders in both places.
You are the president wherever you may be, whether it's in this nation or overseas.
Yes, so that's what happened. What already happened. So this is sort of the next piece of this is if the president receives court rulings that disagree with his take, whether that's executive orders or his declarations that I have this power, which he's done both, what is the recourse here? Because I don't know, we were talking about this before the show, if this has really been tested to this degree before in our nation's history.
Exactly. And we have always abided by the rule of law. Stephen, when I've talked about, for example, you made reference to these major Supreme Court cases of recent time, Roe versus Wade and Dobbs' decision, that's a major one. The reality is an awful lot of people don't like what the Supreme Court's issued over years. This has been a part of our nation's history since day one. And yet what do? We all follow it. It's a piece of paper, right? Issued by 9 people. We all follow it. That's the rule of law. Your question is the all-important one. And so there's an increasing concern out there. We have seen it recently in Washington, D.C. We've seen it in Rhode Island when federal district court judges who are presented with challenges to some of these things that the president is doing, including the one in D.C. It's a judge named Amir Ali. He was the one who recently has expressed some great concern and told the Trump administration to restore federal aid. There's another judge named John McConnell in Rhode Island, and that, again, has to do with other things having to do with the executive power. In both of those cases, the judges have said to representatives of this administration, you're not following what I told you to do. And while they have declined up to this point to find the government or the defendants in contempt, that plainly it raises exactly the issue that you've identified. Now, you can always appeal from a district court judge, and that's the normal process. But the concern about an executive branch or anyone inside our tripartite form of government and saying, no, I'm not going to follow what the Congress says, what the Supreme Court says, what other courts say, that is a constitutional crisis. People talk about Watergate being a constitutional crisis. I would offer it wasn't. Why?
Why do you make that distinction?
Sure. Because in that instance, what happened? We knew that there were articles of impeachment. Remember also, for those of us, I think you and I are both in that category, Steve, who were alive at the time, Richard Nixon was told by a federal district court judge to produce those tapes. What if he had said no? I'm not producing those. What he did, even in the midst of all of his other troubles, he said, yes, I'm producing all of them. They led to his downfall. There were articles of impeachment. He was about to be impeached, probably convicted. The system worked there. Why? Because Richard Nixon followed the law and ultimately, confronted by members of his own party, left the White House.
A couple texters have asked the same question. I'm paraphrasing. Could not Congress be the enforcement mechanism?
Absolutely. Many mechanisms out there. The big one, of course, is oversight, which sounds a little bit weak, but it's significant. The Congress has a major role to play. All of these committees, many of them, have oversight over the specific agencies, including those we talked about before. You call the head of the Department of Labor, and you call the Attorney General in Commerce, Agriculture, whatever your agency is, and you basically question them and you tell them that when it comes to budgeting issues and other legislative issues, we're going to act to ensure that you're operating in compliance with the law. Beyond that, can Congress pass legislation? That's the other reason it has these hearings. Congress can do all kinds of things. Congress can say, you know what? We are in fact changing the way in which these agencies are put together. We're going to increase or decrease the power of the president. president. We can do that as well. And of course, the big one, which we all know about, it is a huge step, but it's happened a number of times in our lifetime, which is impeachment, right? You can say, you know what, you have so violated the basic standards of our Constitution, Mr. President, that we are going to seek to remove you from office. That's an extreme position, but there are things that Congress can do. I think it's appropriate for all of us to ask today, across party lines, what is Congress doing right now?
And Texter points out, that was one of the reasons that Nixon eventually had to leave, is because Congress actually took,
absolutely,
whether they were doing it behind the scenes or on the floor, they were taking direct action against the president.
Committees in both the Senate and the House doing just that. And again, the system, probably not envisioned in that way by James Madison, the system a couple hundred years later worked.
Real quick, because I know you know the personalities and sort of the policy initiatives and ideas of the U.S. Supreme Court when they, I shouldn't say policy, their review of policy and the law. Who's the person, other than liberal members, who's the conservative side that might say, hold on a second here, this is going too far?
Right.
It's probably not going to be Clarence Thomas.
It's probably not going to be Clarence Thomas, probably not Sam Alito, maybe not some of the other so-called sophomores on the court. But we have seen more and more, we have talked about this again in recent broadcasts, Steve, that Amy Coney Barrett is breaking with the so-called conservative majority, which again is a appellation, a way of describing some members of the court, which is probably not always accurate. Just yesterday, the Supreme Court in an oral argument seemed to be unanimous in an employment case. So there is unanimity out there. Amy Coney Barrett, more and more breaking in that major case we just talked about from back in July. She wrote a concurring, sort of dissenting opinion, which she said, you know what, as to a major portion of this when it comes to trying the cases against Donald Trump, I disagree with you, John Roberts, and this is not the way it should be. She has parted company on some environmental cases. And then the other person who's out there, again, who we would talk about a lot, which is John Roberts himself. Yes, he has certainly issued an awful lot of opinions in voting rights and environment, and certainly this major opinion in July. But he's also mindful of the fact that this is the Roberts Court. And as much as he has ceded authority in this opinion, you have to think that he wakes up in the morning, goes to bed at night, thinking about his legacy in the Roberts Court. Do you want to be the court that basically cedes all of this authority to another branch of government when you don't have to?
Yeah, maybe not a good look, historically speaking, for this court. Real quick, after the break, think about this. What the time frame for some of these decisions might be, given that they're at the federal appeals court level. Jim Santel, our guest for the full hour on the show today. Quick break here on 620 WTMJ.
Whatever you want to call this season, we're over it. Time to look forward to
Fly ball, right field. It is deep. It is gone.
Spring training is finally here and back on the radio.
It is up and it is gone. A walk-off homer for Vinny Capra.
Make sure to catch our next spring training broadcast as the Brewers take on the Rangers Saturday at 2. No matter the season, we are the home of the Brewers. WTMJ.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
This is Chief Anti-Heartbreak Officer Brian Wickert. While national headlines talk about the inventory of homes for sale being a lot higher this year, that's still not the case in most of Wisconsin. The good news is that now, even in winter, AccuNet's experienced loan consultants are already helping many of our pre-approved home shoppers become homeowners and avoid the heartbreak of losing in a multi-offer situation. Sure, you can go with a flimsy, unimaginative bank pre-approval, or you can present your offer with an AccuNet rock-solid, fully verified, and guaranteed pre-approval that also might come with the phrase that really makes sellers happy: no appraisal required. When an appraisal is needed, we can also show you in dollars and cents what it means to willingly pay a certain dollar amount over the appraised value if that's what's needed to win, which is usually a lot less scary than people imagine. Reduce your risk of home shopper heartbreak by getting started with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval at AccuNet.com. That's ACCUNET.com.
WTMJ's Eric Bilstead here for Tri-County Contracting. You want to know the price of a new roof on your home today? Well, it's easy. Just go to TriCountyContractingWI.com, click on the Instant Roof Quote button, put in your address and email, click the Show My Roof Price, and there you go. Zero wait time. There's your quote. You shop online for everything else. Who says you can't shop online for a new roof? Tri-County Contracting at WI.com. It's worry-free roofing, siding, and windows. Tri-County Contracting, WI.com.
If you're living with joint pain in your shoulders, hips, elbows, and knees, and you have Medicare or Medicaid insurance, coming to Rejuvenex to solve your pain problems is something you should strongly consider. First off, because our FDA-approved pain treatments have been shown in many cases to be highly effective at reducing inflammation and substantially alleviating pain. Secondly, Medicare and Medicaid cover Rejuvenex treatments, so your cost could be nothing, or next to nothing at all. Chronic pain will only worsen with age. This leads to a far more compromised lifestyle, depression, and soon they start talking surgery. And then what? You have to get in front of arthritis and chronic pain, because the sooner you do, by letting us begin to calm those pain points, the better. I'm Rejuvenex founder Richard Salinas, and we can alleviate your pain so you can rejuvenate your life. Go to rejuvenex.com to request your free pain evaluation.
We got about a minute or so before I get to the ABC News and local news update. We talked about timeline. They're at the federal appeals court level. They're pushing back against the president. Realistically, when might the Supreme Court, in about 30 seconds, can you answer that?
We've got a lot of things percolating up at district courts, appeals courts, maybe getting to the Supreme Court. Maybe sometime later there'll be a petition for a Supreme Court review. Realistically, unless the Supreme Court does a very emergency process, which they could do. They did something even just yesterday with respect to one of those cases. The reality is that substantively, it sometimes takes a year. Remember, we're coming to the end, frankly, in June of sort of this present term. They've got 64 cases on their docket already. It's entirely possible you could see substantive orders coming out in May and June of 2026.
And I got another interesting question that a texter asked that we'll ask you after the break about the power of the Supreme Court justices to do something against the president. So we got local news coming up with Adam Roberts, on my understanding, and lots more to talk about with Jim Santel. Right now, the latest. Ready for ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. President Trump says on social media tariffs will go into effect on imports from Canada and Mexico Tuesday, and the tariffs on all Chinese goods will double from the current 10% number. There are fears these tariffs will lead to higher prices for American consumers. ABC's Michael Strahan asked Amazon CEO Andy Jassy if prices will be going higher.
At the end of the day, if you're building a sustainable business, you can't lose money on everything you're doing.
Should they expect prices to go up across the board on all products?
I hope not.
Today, President Trump will meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the two expected to discuss the war in Ukraine. The West Texas measles outbreaks resulted in the U.S.'s first measles death since 2015. A school-age girl has died. More than 120 people have been infected. Authorities in New Mexico say there were no signs of foul play at the home of legendary actor Gene Hackman, where the 95-year-old was found dead along with his wife and their dog. This is ABC News.
Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time is 9:31. I'm Adam Roberts. Happening within the hour, both the City of Milwaukee and the Milwaukee Public Schools Board due back in court as another deadline for MPS to reinstate school resource officers has arrived, along with another motion to delay, this time from the city. Attorney Evan Goyke seeking relief from Judge David Borowski's order that SRO should not be in place by today, even if their training is not complete. We'll have more on this throughout the morning here on WTMJ. Bedbugs, no heat, angry residents, now another issue for the embattled Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee. Mayor Cavalier Johnson had planned to name Ramona Ramos to fill a vacant board seat for HOCM, but Ramos withdrew her name from consideration on Wednesday. As the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reports, Mayor Johnson is blaming advocacy group Common Ground for her decision to withdraw, as well as to contribute dysfunction to the board. One person is dead after a shooting on Milwaukee's near west side. A man shot and killed Wednesday near 27th and Highland. Police have a male suspect in custody. And a man is dead after a camper fire in Kenosha around 14th Avenue. All occupants of a nearby house had evacuated safely, while fire crews found a dead male inside of the camper. Fire officials not releasing his identity at this time. Time now for news about your money, the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. The latest jobs report is in, and jobless claims have spiked across the country. Despite this, the market's responding a bit better this hour than they were just a half hour ago. The Dow is right now up 344 points at 43,777, while the NASDAQ has trimmed off some of their earlier losses. They were down about 250, now down 104 points at 18,970. And the S&P 500 now is in the green as well, up just 3 points at 5,959. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Let's check the roads. Your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. That earlier crash on the exit to James Lovell and St. Paul off 794 East, that has been taken care of, as has the broken down vehicle on 94 South near the airport. Your drive time's also looking good this hour. No incidents or delays. And your WTMJ forecast. Isolated showers possible today. For most of us, it'll be mostly cloudy, breezy as well with a high of 43. Down to 30 tonight, partly sunny, windy, gusts up to 40 on your Friday with a high of 51. Chilly Saturday, 29 and mostly sunny. Sun Sunday and 34. More clouds than for your Monday with a high of 43 degrees. Right now in Port Washington, it is 39. In Brookfield, clouds and 38. And in Milwaukee, mostly cloudy and 39 degrees. I'm Adam Roberts. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time is 9:34.
What we've found is that when you have workers who feel valued, you get better results. This is why good people and good culture should matter to anyone looking for an exterior remodeling company they can trust. It's going to be your experience and the end result that gives you peace of mind, because you'll know your work was done by people who care. We realized early on that if we were going to change the reputation of this industry for the better, that finding good workers that you could trust to do great work was going to be the key. We're attracting good people every day because we take care of our people. We want to make sure they feel important because they are. And we're going to make sure you feel important and valued too, with excellent customer service and high quality work. This is Brad Youngbluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry, Semper Fi.
Just like most cars and trucks can't run without oil, no person can function without food. That's why, through March 1st, the Auto Dealers of Metro Milwaukee is contributing $1 from every oil change to Feeding America, Eastern Wisconsin. Every dollar provides 3 healthy meals. Over the past 14 years, Adam has provided more than 2.6 million meals to people in southeast Wisconsin. And now, the need is greater than ever. Find a participating Adam dealer near you at adamm.com.
Imagine all the things you dream of under one roof. You're thinking of eBay. Fashion, collectibles, car parts. It's all there. Go find the thing that keeps you up at night. eBay. Things people love. This week's home improvement experts are senior real estate specialists Bruce and Jean Nemovitz from Bruce's team.
Busy Thursday on the program, Political Power Hour. I'm your host, Steve Scaffidi, along with former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel, who's always a popular guest on the program. I'm not going to sit here and just read all the texts that love you. There's very few that don't like you, so you're winning the popularity.
Oh, well, again, you'd like to think, Steve, as you and I have chatted again, that these issues about the government and how it should work should cross party lines, right? Republicans, Democrats, people on all sides should acknowledge, regardless of what you think about policy and how the Congress should enact policy, that these fundamental principles do go back to our founding fathers and their constitutional principles, regardless of how you ally yourself politically, that we should bring to the table on every issue.
And I reminded people about this on the show. So if the Supreme Court validates this idea that the president can simply write out executive orders or actions, and that's the law of the land, and there's really no enforcement to do anything about it, you're essentially setting up a system kind of like what we had a revolution about.
I think so.
Where the king just writes orders and everyone has to follow because he's the king.
Right.
Or the queen.
Right.
I understand that, but at some point there has to be some limits. Now I want to quickly get to this because there's a bunch of other stuff. Could the president, since it's sort of an if here, if Supreme Court gives him sort of more absolute power, whatever that means, whatever the Roberts Court decides, could he whack members of the Supreme Court? Could he, I mean figuratively, senators by executive order? Is that a thing?
The answer, of course, is that he can issue pieces of paper with his signature on them, right? Right. And the question is whether those can be enforced. You would like to think, again, consistent with our previous comments just a few seconds ago, that the president does not have the power to remove Supreme Court justices. There are 3 ways that you can leave the bench. You can resign, you can retire, and we do have some former justices out there who are involved in civics, doing some great things out there. You can also, of course, be impeached, which has happened just once in our history. history unsuccessfully, or, as we've also seen recently, if you die in office. Those are the three ways constitutionally that you can leave the positions there on Capitol Hill in the Supreme Court. President does not have the authority to say, you are leaving right now, I am firing you. And yet, all of that is premised upon our belief in a constitution. If indeed at some point the president declares that I am the state, I can do whatever I want, and he also has the enforcement ability, that raises a question and opens a sentence that I'm not going to finish here, right? Because we think about that in abject disbelief. Our present system does not contemplate his being able to remove United States senators because he doesn't like them. You can do things certainly in terms of programming and other things with respect to monies, but you don't have the authority just to reach across a branch of government and fire people. You do have some authority when it comes to agencies. That gets back once again to what Congress does and does not do in establishing agencies. The whole idea, the question goes to this issue of checks and balances. When you do those things that are more extreme, the balances are no longer there.
And my last word on this, because we're going to get to the Department of Justice and the Eric Adams mess that's going on. If you allow this sort of ultimate power of the president, you are setting up a system where when the next election happens, whether that's next in 2028 or 2032, when the other party gets in power, what do you think is going to happen to the laws of the land that typically were created by Congress and precedents and all those things? They're simply going to get reversed, probably more than likely.
Absolutely.
And then you have a real chaotic mess when it comes to the state of our country.
You do. And you don't have consistency, which is one of the things the government's got to provide, right? Security, safety, that's fundamental at the top of the list, but also some sense of whether you're a business, you're an individual, that you've got some reliance upon basic notions about the way in which we live and our livelihoods can be pursued. If every 2 years, every 4 years, those things are turned on their heads, completely reversed, when you've got a new president, you've got a new Congress coming in, that is also not consistent with our overall design for government. It's not to say that Congress cannot change the law. It can and it should under appropriate circumstances. The United States Supreme Court from time to time reverses decisions. We embrace that as well. But that's the concern if you've got an all-powerful executive branch or, frankly, an all-powerful court. That if the other branches are no longer checking that with each change in administration, you will get those swinging doors and the calamity that comes with that.
He is Jim Santel, my guest for the full hour today. We're going to take a break here. We're going to talk about some of the personalities that are now in very important positions across governments, agencies, and departments, including Kash Patel at the FBI and other names that you probably maybe 4 years ago wouldn't have associated with these high-level positions, but here we are. That's the state of the government. We'll talk about that and more. And don't forget, closing arguments will round out this great hour of radio. That's coming up at the end of the show. You're listening, of course, to 620 WTMJ.
Wisconsin winters are unpredictable.
This is history. Never had a tornado touchdown in February.
We keep you updated on blizzards.
Winter storm warning has been issued for all of southeast Wisconsin, and it's going to get really, really dicey.
Blackouts.
Tens of thousands of customers across southeast Wisconsin are without power this morning.
Icy roads.
Very, very slick conditions pretty much everywhere.
And more. With WTMJ Fleet Farm Storm Team alerts on air and at WTMJ.com.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Scaffidi. For Heiser, I'm winding down. Got about a week left with my current ride, the beautiful 2023 pre-owned Chevy Silverado 1500 LT. It's got less than 10,000 miles. You can actually buy it once I'm done with it at Heiser, one of their 5 great locations. It's got great gas mileage, 24 city, 29 highway. Unbelievable technology. It looks amazing, this beautiful glacier blue metallic color. Everything you need, you can get at one of their great locations, 5 great local locations southeast of Wisconsin, or online at Heiser.com. All their vehicles, pre-owned and new. You can also find out about their appointment schedule online, right? Service appointments. Maybe you need some body shop work. Just have questions, all available online. That's why they're so good at customer service. And don't forget about their great programs, Safe and Sound, Roadside Assistance for Life. All reasons why I love working with Heiser. And I'm a customer, too. We just bought a new car from Heiser for my wife, Kathy. That's why they can say. That's why I love saying it. Today's your day.
At Uline, the prevailing opinion is, if you don't live it, you don't believe it. The people at Uline believe in hard work and they live it by being there 24/7 to answer your call, having 41,000 items in stock, and offering same-day shipping from 12 locations across North America. Business owners, sellers, buyers, shippers, and packers believe it. Uline is the hard-working, dependable source for your shipping and industrial supplies. Visit uline.com.
For over a century, local radio has evolved with the needs of the community. From politics to pop culture, we keep you informed, bringing you the most relevant news, online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Find furniture for life from Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee.
Healthy joints, healthy lifestyle. Vince Vitrano for Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin. Arthritis, injuries, wear and tear, common joint issues that keep you from doing what you love. At OAW, a visit to the doctor doesn't always mean surgery. Everyone is different. Surgeons, nurses, physical therapists work together to come up with a plan for you. Maybe it's PT, medication, injection, and if you do need surgery like I did, you know you're in the best of hands. Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin, there is a difference. Book an appointment online at orthowisconsin.com.
Great hour on local radio, which is why I love doing what I do, and I'm not going anywhere. So the texter said, I wish you were on the radio anymore. I appreciate your comments and your feedback, but I'll be around for a while, so God willing. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some of the agencies, Department of Justice, certainly departments, FBI, Kash Patel now leading that organization. Dan Bongino, a squawker extraordinaire, podcaster, and give him his credit, former Secret Service agent.
Yes.
I would put them in the less than qualified category, and people may disagree, but they are now in charge. We know that the Department of Justice is going to be transformed in sort of a wing of the White House, which is not really, in my opinion, maybe yours as well, Jim, how it should work.
Yes.
Talk about some of that, just the structure of these agencies and organizations.
Exactly. We've got appointments to positions like the Attorney General. That's Pam Bondi, and she plainly has some background here. She's been the Attorney General of Florida. And then you walk across the street, you've got Kash Patel, who had a little bit of federal service in Donald Trump's first term, really not qualified to be an FBI director, but nonetheless, in a political position, these second-in-command positions, Steve, are all important. And so during the past administration, for example, there was a Deputy Attorney General named Lisa Monaco. She was running the Department of Justice. I worked with Lisa many, many years ago in Washington, D.C. She's a lifetime career person who knows how things work, and regardless of what your particular views on politics will be, these are the people who run the organizations, who make it work and say, Mr. or Madam Director, what do you want to do? I will make that happen because they know how things work. Dan Bongino, as you just said, I think does not fall into that category. He is someone who, yes, has got a little bit of law enforcement experience. He is not a career FBI agent. And yes, that's right. Maybe you don't have to be there for 20 years or so, but someone who knows how this huge agency, the premier law enforcement agency in our nation, works not only in Washington, D.C., but right here in Wisconsin, across the nation, who knows how to accomplish law enforcement for the people of our nation. You got to have somebody in that position who knows how things work. That's not Dan Bongino.
Let me ask you about the Eric Adams situation, because that's directly from the Department of Justice, sort of laying off, taking hands off. Quid pro quo is the term that's been thrown around a lot, right?
Yes.
You do what we want. I'm paraphrasing. Yep. We'll go easy on you or just step away. What do you make of that?
I'm just appalled by it and shocked by it, and that is not hyperbole, by the way. This is a situation where, again, you've seen the acting United States Attorney for Manhattan. She has resigned. Other people in the public integrity section who came forward and said, yes, this is a meritorious piece of litigation. Again, Eric Adams presumed innocent until proven guilty by in front of a jury. Nonetheless, the integrity of that prosecution cannot be questioned. And the notion here is, of course, that Eric Adams went to Donald Trump, curried some favor with him. We've seen that publicly as well. And the response is, all right, we're going to move the court to dismiss that case against you. But interestingly, and this is the hitch, without prejudice, and this is why people are so animated, there's a possibility, if indeed the judge grants that motion, that you could bring this back down the road, Eric Adams, and that's the concern concern that people in New York, other places have, that Donald Trump now will have this hanging over Eric Adams' head as the mayor of New York City and could bring it back at any time if Eric Adams does not cooperate. The status right now is that there's a federal district court judge right there in Manhattan, and again, his name is Dale E. Ho, and right now he is taking under advisement whether or not he should grant that motion. There's very little authority, frankly, for a judge to say no, but there's some, and he has recently appointed Paul Clement, a non-party to this case, to give him some advice on this and figure out whether or not he should in fact grant this motion, and if so, is it with or without prejudice? The Eric Adams thing is by no means done as of this time.
Which brings me to my next conversation before we get to our last break, and that's the conversation about DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency, led, of course, by the richest man in the world, billionaire Elon Musk. There's a lot of import that job has, apparently, because he's literally fired thousands of governmental workers, some with little warning, some highly experienced, no real cause for firing other than a new administration. I understand the president, Donald Trump, has given him that power.
He certainly has ceded that authority.
But the legal concerns here about someone wielding this kind of power, you must have some of those.
I do. And again, I can be criticized legitimately for being an institutionalist when it comes to government. Like you, Steve, formerly in government, I was there for, frankly, more than 30 years or so. So I'd like to think I know something at least about the Department of Justice. It concerns me profoundly, and it should concern all your listeners, again, on all sides of the political aisle, that you have someone here who presumably has not undergone a background check, which is a predicate for virtually every employment opportunity in the government, somebody who's been given authority. The other thing that, again, it's going to sound linguistic, it's going to sound very wonky, this is not a department. And that's why more and more I'm trying not to talk about DOGE. I'm trying to talk about what Elon Musk is doing. It's not a department established by the Congress where you give an administrator or a director authority and responsibility. This is a unilateral thing established by the president without real constitutional or statutory authority, doing all of these things, including, again, employment situations. And oh, by the way, directing 3 million federal employees to hand in their homework on what they've done in the past several days. That is unprecedented. It underscores once again frankly, I would say, the lack of appreciation for how government works at the White House level.
All right, you've heard Jim make his case after the break. We always do it this way on Thursday. Closing arguments from former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel after this on 620 WTMJ.
Hey, WTMJ's John Burke here. Hang out with me Saturdays at 1 o'clock. It's the Experience Wisconsin show. We go from north to south, from the Mississippi to Lake Michigan, introducing you to some of the cool places, events, and people that make Wisconsin so super special. This week, a show that I'm really excited about. It is the Greater Milwaukee Automobile Dealers Association show, the Milwaukee Auto Show. We'll talk to an expert from the auto show. They'll tell you what's going on, the new cars, and a whole lot more. It's Experience Wisconsin, Saturdays on WTMJ.
Hey, this is WTMJ. Steve Scaffidi for Advent. I love talking about Advent. You know this. I've benefited from their wisdom and experience and expertise when it comes to sleep and how you can live a better life, getting the oxygen you need. I always had poor sleep. I was a bad snorer. That's ancient history. I did it about 5 years ago. I went into Advent, 30-minute visit. They answered all my questions, put me at ease. We did a really simple sleep study at home in my own bed. They determined my problem, sinuses, nasal passages in my breathing triangle. After a short procedure in one of their offices, since that date, breathing better than ever. Here's the big one. Here's the kicker, as they say, sleeping through the whole night. That is so refreshing. You wake up feeling refreshed and rested. That can be your reality, too. I did something about it. You can, too. And before I ever was a spokesperson, I was a customer and a client of Advent. If you want to find out how breathing well and sleeping well can make your nights better, go to AdventKnows.com, schedule an appointment today, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Tune in on Sundays at 10 a.m. for the AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show. Join AccuNet's Brian and David Wickert for the most up-to-date information on mortgage trends, along with timely news on the real estate market. The housing market is in flux, but the national headlines don't often fit local market conditions. Find out what's really happening on the front lines of real estate and mortgage financing in Wisconsin and make better decisions by tuning in every Sunday at 10 a.m. The AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian and David Wickert on WTMJ.
Do you know or work with kids who have special healthcare needs? Help them live their best lives. Contact Wisconsin Wayfinder Children's Resource Network. Our specialists will connect you with services in your area. Wisconsin Wayfinder is free and confidential. Call 877-947-2929 or visit dhs.wi.gov/WISCWAY. Connect today. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Hey, it's Jason Wilde for Excel Custom Decks. I at least like to think I'm an expert when it comes to football, but I know Excel are truly experts when it comes to the art of deck building. With the finest materials and products combined with their superior craftsmanship, they'll deliver exceptional quality and value on everything from backyard decks to pergolas and outdoor kitchens. If you can dream it, Rob and his family can build it. Family-owned Excel Custom Decks delivers decking excellence by design. Visit excelcustomdecks.com to learn more.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee. From the Annex Wealth Management Studios, this is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station. Now it's time for your closing arguments.
All right, let's get to it. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel, closing arguments.
We talked at the top of the show, my friend, about the exercise of power by an executive. Sometimes said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I'm not certain I believe in that or not, but let's talk a little bit about history. We happen to be gathering today, Steve, on your wonderful show on an anniversary in constitutional history. We talked about February 27th, 1951 is a date that a significant number, a sufficient number of states ratified the 22nd Amendment. 22nd Amendment. I know all your listeners right now know this at the top of their head.
Now they're all thinking, what is the 22nd Amendment? You're about to tell us.
Right. And the 22nd Amendment is the one that basically says you can't serve more than 2 terms in office. There's some variations on that if you take over somebody else's term. All of that happening, again, some 64 years ago today. And so it brings the issue of history. Let's go back even further than that. Let's go back to King James of England. King James I as my name. He wrote something in 1598 called The True Law of Free Monarchies. I'm not going to read the entire thing. You'll be pleased to know, Steve. But he basically says that kings are the makers of the laws and not the laws of the kings. James not only ruled without a parliament and ruled, again, as a complete monarch, but also his son, Charles I. Even more authority established under Charles I. It didn't go well for Charles I in the end because of his overreach in that situation. 1642, there was a civil war, and indeed Charles lost his head, led to Oliver Cromwell's Commonwealth, all sorts of other things, and again, including, as you made reference before, King George III and our own situation with monarchs. The point of all of that is not to say, again, that history will repeat itself, but just that when we think about our own historical precedents here in America, they are steeped in all of that history, where we have said, no, the leaders of our nation are not the laws. We also know as well, probably apocryphal, that King Louis XIV, crossing the pond, if you will, over there in Europe, basically said, l'état c'est moi, the state, that's me. There were a couple more kings after him, one of them who also lost his head. We know today that kind of declaration of that I am the state, I am the law, not only doesn't go well for those monarchs and those leaders in terms of long-term history, but the people say no. And that's what I'd call upon America to do today in response not only to this executive order we talked about at the top of 8 or so days ago. Look at that and ask yourselves, again, regardless of what your partisan view is, whether that is something that is consistent with your understanding of your America in 2025. I would offer that everyone says it is not.
A great history lesson from Jim Santel, my old boss, who's actually my guest on the entire hour Monday, Steve Wexler, would call those dazzling details. And you nailed it with your history lesson on why it's so, what's the word?
Significant.
Foreshadowing of what we are talking about today.
Yes.
Always a pleasure. The brilliant Jim Santel, former U.S. Attorney for Southeastern Wisconsin. We'll do it again in a few weeks.
My great pleasure, Steve, always.
News is next at 620 WTMJ.
You can accomplish quite a lot in 6 years. You go from changing diapers to dropping your child off at school. You can get a bachelor's and a master's degree. And you can take up to 6 years to pay off your brand new Pella windows and doors at 0% interest. You get so much more than stunning windows and doors. It's the Pella experience. Talk about quality control. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. Set your free in-home consultation today at